In Update 1.97, Gaijin made quite a few changes to Naval. Some of them are positive, others less so. I'm going to go over each major change, give some analysis, and give my opinions on them. This won't be covering the new ships or their BRs, but I do plan to cover that later. First is the change to ammunition loadouts. Ships can now take more than 2 shell types for their main guns. Now you can have a mix of HE, AP, and airburst ammo on ships without having to make the decision of which type to leave out. I can't think of any negatives of this change, it's just an overall positive change that makes naval battles better. There are a lot of changes to individual ships, though most of those are minor nerfs or buffs. I won't be going over each individual change, but there is one I'll touch on. Numerous British guns have received HE-VT ammunition. This affects most of their cruisers and destroyers. Having VT is a nice addition to these ships and makes them much less vulnerable to aircraft. With the previously mentioned change of being able to bring more ammo types, the player also isn't forced to choose between this type of ammo and HE or SAP. It's another good change that there aren't any downsides of, and it makes active play against aircraft more viable for the British. Next come the changes to shell storage damage models, but there's a bit to go through. First, shell storage has been divided into more sections. Shell chambers, fuse chambers, first stage shell stowage, auxiliary guns shell stowage, and depth charge or bomb storage. Along with this, the main magazines explode upon taking damage and have an 11% chance to detonate from, as Gaijin puts it, instant strong explosive damage. The first stage shell stowage and fuse storage can also explode, damaging their turret and causing a fire. This detonation doesn't kill the ship, however. Auxiliary gun shell stowage and depth charge or bomb stowage can also detonate, damaging the surrounding area, but not destroying the vessel. These changes are a bit of a mixed bag, but I would say they're overall good. Having minor ammo racks able to detonate without instantly destroying the ship is good, and it means that random ammo shots are less likely to detonate a ship instantly, but rather deal significant damage to it. My main issue with this is the 11% chance of detonation. I would rather see less RNG in naval battles, rather than more. I think this change will also slightly buff larger caliber guns such as 8-inch and 11-inch cannons, as their larger splash radius is more likely to detonate multiple smaller ammo racks. The next change is that crew compartments have been, as Gaijin puts it, fixed or redistributed for all cruisers. The patch notes say that this has led to a slight increase in survivability, which in my experience, does seem to hold true. While I do like the increased tankiness of cruisers against fire, this change doesn't protect against ships being one-shot through ammo detonation. Just as the ammo change buffed larger guns, this does too, as being able to one-shot someone's ammo is becoming even more important. Next comes optimization for the geometric grid in damage models, which allows for the better calculation time for shells, as it's written. It isn't easy to tell what this change means from how it's written, other than that it improves shell calculations, which I suppose is a good thing, assuming it works properly. Next on the list is that the time for repairing modules in Realistic was balanced. Not increased or decreased, but balanced. Overall repair times do feel longer, so I'm going to assume that this change was just an increase. I'm not a fan of this change. In most matches you'll be constantly repairing, and it just makes the mode a lot more frustrating to play. The next major change has been a long time coming, and I think most players were expecting it sooner rather than later. A new class of ships, labeled Frigate, has been added. These ships now have to spawn with destroyers, when many of them used to spawn with PT boats. This affects the PR-159, PR-35, Chikugo, Isuzu, Sonyen, Koln F-220, Ikazuchi, Groza, Kanonen Boot K2, and River class. For the PR-159 and PR-35, this changes nothing, as they previously had destroyer spawn anyway. With the others, this change has been pretty needed. Most of these ships have been intensely seal clubbing the lower BRs. Most of these ships are still going to be viable, they just won't annihilate all the ships they spawn with. I would say some of these ships could go down slightly in BR to compensate, but most of them are fine where they are. The next change is that enemy respawn zones show up on the map when a player is inside them. I mean, it's a change I guess. It doesn't really do anything, but okay Gaijin. Second to last, destroyed vehicles will now remain for the entire battle. This, again, doesn't change much. I could potentially see problems with destroyed vehicles blocking a choke point, but as I've yet to see this happen in-game at any BR, I'm going to assume that it isn't an issue. The last change has a lot more to talk about than the rest of these. When the crew of a ship reaches 5% more than the minimum crew, the ability to pump water, repair hull breaches, extinguish fires, and repair damaged parts of the vessel is removed. The player retains control of the ship, but effectively your life is put on a timer until the ammunition burns out or the ship capsizes. Previously, on a nascent ship, the crew would bail out once the ship only has 30% of the overall crew remaining. This is displayed as 0% in-game, as the in-game percentage is counting down to the amount of minimum crew before you die, not the overall crew of the vessel. Now, at roughly 33% of the total crew remaining, the crew stops repairing or extinguishing and sits around waiting for 3% more of the crew to die before bailing from the ship. Frankly, this change adds nothing to the game, and makes no sense from either a realism or gameplay perspective. From a realistic standpoint, repairs cease and the ship is doomed, yet the crew doesn't bail. The crew bailing at low percentages was already modeled in the game at 30% of the overall crew, despite being confusingly modeled to say 0%. Let me know in the comments below if I should make a video on how the crew percents work. It's a bit confusing, but I think I have it figured out. Now the crew just sits their tools down and waits until a few more people die before scuttling the ship. From a gameplay perspective, this means that if you win an engagement but are left on less than 5% until reaching minimum crew, you die anyway. Effectively, you're punished for not dying, and it's surprising how many times this has actually gotten me killed. It happens more often than one would expect. Worse yet, this change is incredibly buggy. It doesn't start at 5% as the patch notes say, it starts at anywhere from 5% to 11%. Sometimes repairs don't stop, but you can't start new ones. Sometimes it flickers on and off and allows you to start new repairs, but it doesn't stop them after it changes back to being off. Between being incredibly buggy and making no worthwhile changes to the mode, this mechanic should simply be removed. There's no reason for it to be in the game, and it is easily the worst Naval change of the patch. Overall, I would say most of the changes are positive, but the change to low crew percentages alone is enough to make this patch an overall negative. It's one bad mechanic ruining the bunch. Gaijin needs to remove it immediately. With that done, this patch would be an overall positive mechanics-wise. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to join my Discord, Stug's Dockyard. Also remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more Naval content. I've got a lot more stuff coming soon, hopefully.